what is the purpose of National Tree Planting Day?
Well, historically, the tree planting day was just to rally people around the cause of tree planting. As for your information, we started on the tree planting event, the National Tree Planting Day, way back in 1980, just after independence. And actually, the first tree planting day was on the 6th of December in 1980. And if you look at the situation back then, we didn't have many challenges in terms of deforestation or overuse, overexploitation of forest resources. But it was just a visionary uh, thing that was put in place to make sure that we inculcate that culture of looking after our trees and planting more trees. And it has become more useful now, given the challenges that we are now facing, the devastating rate of deforestation that we are talking about every year, 262,000 hectares per annum that we are experiencing every year. And this is owing to the different factors. Population growth is contributing, there is need for agricultural expansion, there is need for settlement expansion, a lot of industrial activities that are eating into our forest resources when they do expand. So the National Tree Planting Day really is a rallying cause to ensure that people maintain that spirit of replacing what they've used in terms of our forest resources. So we set up targets for tree planting each year, where we encourage communities all over to contribute to the achievement of that target. We set a target of possibly, like for this year, we have 25 million trees that have to be planted within the tree planting season itself. And I'll hasten to say that this is not to say that 25 million trees will actually replace what we've lost in the year. We are far off given the rate of deforestation that I've talked about, but we are saying tree planting is there to complement other conservation measures. We talk of proper woodland management practices that we encourage our communities to undertake. That contributes to sustainability within the utilization of our forests and forest resources.
Okay, so what is being done to ensure the long-term survival of the trees being planted?
Well, basically what is needed is the education and awareness on how people can manage the trees that they've planted. Actually, we have an issue with calling it a tree planting season. We would rather call it a tree growing season, because when we talk of tree planting, a person would just say, I've dug my hole, I've put my tree on the ground, I've watered it, I've planted a tree. But then what? We then have to move forward to see that if there is no reliable source of water, we are consciously making efforts to plant those trees until they establish well and they get to live to maturity, and then we can derive the benefits that we want from those trees and forests. So our education and awareness starts from how to plant the tree, because for some people it's basic, but for some people it's not as easy. So even from grassroots level, when we go out and carry out our tree planting events, we actually start with demonstrations on how a tree is to be planted. And then if it is a plantation that has been set up where we have a huge tract of land that has been the way we have planted, maybe it's a plantation or it's an orchard, we then look at the long-term, short-term and long-term management practices that the responsible people can undertake: the watering regimes, the weeding regimes, the pruning and all that. And if it's an orchard, how to protect those trees from pests and diseases, how to, even to the harvesting period, we have all that information. So for us, what's critical is the education and awareness on the management of those trees after they've been planted. That's the tree growing aspect we are talking about.
We went to different towns and noted that many people are cutting down trees for different reasons, such as lack of knowledge. How can the Forest Commission help in stopping this problem?
Well, if it's lack of knowledge, we are doing our best as the Forestry Commission to make sure that we impart the necessary knowledge. But I would want to say cutting down trees, I would really beg to differ that people would say we are cutting down trees because of lack of knowledge. I mean, it's basic. Even at primary level, at school, ECD these days, people learn about the bad things that cutting down trees can cause. And we make efforts to educate, even in the schools. We have the Catch Them Young mantra, where we are educating children on how to properly take care of trees. So for an adult, really, to say that they are cutting down trees because of lack of knowledge, we would understand issues like, no, we are cutting down trees because there is no electricity and we have no alternative sources of energies that are actually renewable or sustainable. Those are some of the reasons that we have experienced in our working in our during our extension services in communities. And for that, we would say, while we understand that communities have challenges, especially in terms of energy, at the same time, it is not the Forestry Commission's mandate to provide alternative sources of energy. We only come in because the resource that we are mandated to protect, to conserve, is the one that is at most risk when people have no other alternatives. This is now where we embark and partner up with institutions that are rolling out alternative energy technologies like the Tsotso stoves that people can use that utilize less firewood to reduce the necessity of cutting down trees for firewood reasons, like which I suppose are some of the reasons that people are giving. As for lack of knowledge, we've done our best, we are doing our best, we'll continue to do our best to provide the knowledge on the adverse effects of cutting down trees. We are talking of climate change these days. Anyone can know what the climate change phenomenon is doing to communities, from destroying our livelihoods to the long drought seasons. Right now we are still in the dry spell when it's supposed to be a cropping season, but we haven't received rains yet. So all those are indications that climate change is taking its toll on people. So that's the kind of awareness we want to push within our communities to see how we can adapt to the existing challenges and at the same time protecting our forest resources.
What challenges does the Forest Commission face in its tree planting efforts?
The challenges are quite varied. I referred earlier on to the fact that we go into communities to plant trees. Sometimes the challenges we face are actually the lack of land, because there's now competition for land. People want to expand for other livelihood activities like agriculture, their settlements and stuff. So for us to actually compete with that, to then have large tracts of land just to put forest, because for a lot of people, when they see a forest area, to them it's idle land. And to change that misconception that a forest is lost its utility when we want to build something, that's one of the major challenges that we are facing. But to address that, we've tried to integrate ourselves within the various systems that people see as important. Agriculture, for instance, a person would clear out a forest to plant their crops, but we are saying you don't necessarily need to clear all the trees at your farming area. We have something called agroforestry, where you integrate your trees and your forest and to the benefit of your farming practice. We are looking at trees that can actually contribute to soil fertility. You might as well maintain those trees at your farm, on your farm, so that you integrate into your farming system and you benefit more. There is less use of artificial fertilizers when you have trees that can provide the needed nutrition for your soil. So those are some of the interventions that we've come up with to step into those sectors that we are competing with in terms of the land for planting trees and to maintain our forest integrity. We are talking of the tobacco growing sector right now. It's chewing 15 to 20% of, it's contributing rather 15 to 20% of that rate of deforestation that I referred to earlier. And we are saying this is the cash crop of the moment. Everyone is going that route. But what can we do to make it sustainable and less impactful on the forest resources? We've introduced the Tobacco Wood Energy Program, where we are working with the same tobacco farmers so that they plant trees that are fast growing in nature that they can use for tobacco curing. So that sort of addresses the deforestation that is related to that industry. So that's what we have to do right now. Look into technologies, invest into technologies that address the challenges that are sector specific, and see what interventions can be put in place to bring down the levels of deforestation that are attributable to the various sectors of the economy.
Okay, thank you. You said something about cutting down of trees to create space for different activities. Is cutting down of trees a crime, or cutting down of forests a crime in Zimbabwe?
According to the Forest Act, Chapter 19.05.
Yes.
It's actually a crime to cut down trees for any reason whatsoever.
What other initiatives are being undertaken to promote sustainable forest practices? And is there any message that you want to say to the country?
All right. In terms of initiatives, earlier on I referred to the issue of introducing woodland management practices that complement tree planting. For instance, in a community that has a woodland that is thriving, you'd want to maintain that status quo and promote the conservation of that. But at the same time, a community would want to derive some sort of benefit from that resource. So this is where we come in with programs or projects like beekeeping, which we introduce in those communities. These are non-consumptive uses of forests, where if you put your beehives within a forest area, there is more incentive at protecting that forest rather than cutting it. You want to protect that forest from fires, because you've got your investment within that forest. You actually become the protector of that forest. You don't want anyone cutting down trees, because that will deprive your bees of the fodder that you require for beekeeping. And beekeeping alone is quite a profitable enterprise. Beekeeping, the honey, the byproducts, the propolis, the beeswax and everything. That is some livelihood that is just there for someone to derive, other than cutting down a tree and selling firewood. And it's done with the tree. You can't keep getting a benefit out of one tree. When you cut it, it's done. But when you introduce programs like the beekeeping, mopani worm farming, extraction of oils from seed within the forest areas, mushroom harvesting and all that, those are non-consumptive ways of utilizing our forests, but still enabling communities to sustain their livelihoods.